Help support Name Explain by liking this video, leaving a comment and subscribing to the channel. Despite how shiny and clear polished silver can be, its etymology isn't as clear. All we seem to know is that it came from older Germanic and Slavonic origins with the likes of the Old High German Silaba and the Old Church Slavonic Sirbo. Then from here things just don't seem to be too known. However, despite this, silver has constantly been a highly desired material, used for making high quality products and for changing and bartering in the form of silver coins. Nations can be shaped by the silver in the nation, and one country has gone on to be even named after the metal. Though, which one? Well, let's look at a map and see what country's name sounds most similar to silver. The ones that come to my mind are the likes of Slovenia and Slovakia, as they both have the S, L and V sounds, though long-time Name Explain viewers will know these aren't named after silver, and of course why their names are similar. So why aren't these nations that sound like silver named after silver? Well, that's because of how the word silver is spelt in other languages. Despite how silver may sound similar in many languages like the English silver, Dutch zilver, German silber and Icelandic silver, the word doesn't follow this pattern across all languages. In fact, if you speak Romance language, I'm sure you already have a very clear idea as to what nation is named after silver, just from your words for silver, unless you speak Spanish, in which case the word for silver is plata, though that word for silver will come into play in this story. And if you have a good understanding of the periodic table, then you probably have a good idea as to what country is named after silver. All chemicals have a symbol associated with them. These exist so the elements can be written about using shorthand writing instead of having to constantly write out these huge long names. These symbols for elements are defined by either one or two letters, with the letter usually relating to the name of the element, like how hydrogen symbol is just an H, as hydrogen starts with an H, and the symbol for magnesium is Mg, as the M and G sounds are rather prominent in the name of magnesium. Though if you were to look for silver on the periodic table, you won't find it represented by the letters of SL or SV or anything like that. That would make way too much sense. On the periodic table, silver is represented by the letters of AG, neither of which are present in the English name of silver. These letters come from silver's Latin name, ARGENTUM, and this isn't the only letter that symbol reflects a past name rather than its modern name. We see this too with how K is the symbol for potassium, Fe for iron, Sn for tin, Sb for antimony, W for tungsten, Au for gold, Hg for mercury, and Pb for lead, all of which seem just as nonsensical as Ag being used to represent silver. This Latin name of Argentum derives from the Greek argalos, which is believed to relate to the Sanskrit arga una, which means light, maybe because silver is a rather light metal in colour and weight. Descendants of this Latin name survive to this day, however, with the French argent, Italian argento, Romanian argent, and even the Esperanto argento. And I'm sure from hearing this Latin name for silver and all these other modern words for silver, you have a good idea as to what country is actually named after silver, and that is none other than the South American nation of Argentina. At over 1 million square miles in size, Argentina is the 8th largest country on the planet and the biggest Spanish-speaking country on the planet. I always find it weird when the nation the language is from isn't the biggest nation that speaks that language, with the best example of that being how England, one of the smallest countries, actually uses English. Seriously, I've never noticed how huge most of the other countries that have English as their main language are. And being in South America means that it's bordered by the nations of Paraguay, Brazil, Uruguay, Chile and Bolivia. Anyway, how on earth did this nation end up being named after the metal of silver? Well, while Argentina does contain a lot of silver and their silver mining industry is highly lucrative, there's actually a lot more history to it than that. Argentina was colonized by the Spanish in the 16th century. However, as we mentioned, the Spanish word for silver, despite being a Romance language too, doesn't come from the Latin argentum. It is in fact plata. An idea for the origin of this Spanish word for silver, plata, is that it comes from the Latin planus, which means flat, as the metal will be made into a flat shape. And this also relates to the words plate and plata, as they are flat too and can be made from silver. And of course relates to plains, as in the flat areas of land. It's a great example of how seemingly unrelated words can be tied via etymology. Anyway, as I was saying, it was colonized by the Spanish in the 16th century, yet their word for silver sounds nothing like the Latin argentum. So why did they call this land something like Platia, which ties closer to their word for silver? This is because what was in fact colonized by the Spanish had already been named by the Portuguese, hence why the name sounds more similar to the Portuguese/Latin word for silver, rather than the Spanish word for the stuff. Though the Portuguese only named it after their word for silver, as the Spanish before them had named the nearby river after their word for silver. Confused? Good, I was hoping that would be the case. This would make a wee bit more sense if I told the story in more detail and in chronological order this time round. Let's start in the early 1500s. A Spanish conquistador, well actually he was Portuguese but he served Spain, by the name of ALEXIO Garcia heard a tale about a land in South America rife with silver. He journeyed to the New World to try and find it and bring as much silver back as possible to Spain. However, while in this land he was killed by local tribesmen. While he never made it out these lands, some of his team did, with pockets full of silver from the land. Back in Spain, the surviving members of this voyage talked about this exotic land, and most noticeably a river they came across that was supposedly laced with silver on its bed. The Spanish were so tantalized by this river they named it Rio de la Plata, which means River of Silver. However, this Rio de la Plata is actually an estuary and now forms part of the border between Argentina and Uruguay, and this tale of how the river got its name isn't actually certain, but something of a folk etymology. We even have other recorded names to the river like Mar Dulce, Rio de Solis, Rio de Santa Maria, and Rio Jordan. However, for one reason or another, the name Rio de la Plata is the one that has stuck around, so perhaps there is some truth to the tale and death of ALEXIO Garcia. This naming of the river took place in the ambiguous time period of the early 1500s, due to the fact we don't really know the whole story, though in 1554 we have clear evidence as to when the name Argentina as we know it started to take shape. It was in this year that Portuguese explorer slash cartographer LOPO was exploring this part of the world. He must have known of the story of ALEXIO Garcia and his Silver River, so when mapping out South America, he named the land by the River of Silver the Land of Silver, which in Portuguese would have been Terra Argentea, and of course when the Spanish took over the land they adopted this name of Terra Argentea but transformed it into the Spanish Argentina, so it's a Spanish adaptation of a Portuguese name, but that Portuguese name was inspired by the Spanish name of a nearby river, which is just a tad confusing. However, before it could become the nation of Argentina, it became part of a new Spanish colony named the Viceroyalty of the Rio de la Plata, with this Viceroyalty of course being named after the river that Argentina itself was named after. Though it wouldn't stay this way for long, as by 1810 it seems that the people started turning on their Spanish rulers, thus starting the Argentine War of Independence. This civil war within the nation lasted till 1818. However, it was 2 years before that Argentina declared itself independent from Spain, and here it became the nation it is today, with noticeably the UK being one of the first nations to recognise Argentina's independence, forming a treaty of friendship, commerce and navigation between the two nations. And speaking of UK-Argentine relations, there's something I found so fascinating about Argentina that I probably wouldn't get the chance to talk about anywhere else, so I'm going to cover it here, and that's the fact that within Argentina there's a whole Welsh-speaking community, which to me is just crazy. Wales and Argentina are two countries I don't really associate with having much in common, but nevertheless the language is spoken by whole communities of people down in South America. Patagonian Welsh, more on that word in a moment, has even become a version of Welsh unto itself, and their flag is a cool mixture of the Argentine and Welsh flags. This community had its beginnings in 1865 when around 150 people from various parts of Wales emigrated to southern Argentina to start a fresh life there, and over the years more and more Welsh people emigrated to the country, setting up their own towns and communities. Wikipedia states that there are now around 50,000 Welsh Argentines. If you happen to be watching this and are Welsh Argentine, then please let me know what life is like in the Welsh part of Argentina. I'd seriously love to know. And yes, I mentioned the name of Patagonia. This is a region of South America that actually encompasses parts of Chile as well as Argentina. Of course, Argentina, like most countries, is made up of various regions, and perhaps one day we'll look into those. But to end this video, I'd like to talk just about Patagonia, as despite how interesting it is to have a country named after silver, with Patagonia we have a region of the world named after giants. Yep, the things from fairy tales with Anglo-attuned nostrils. How on earth did this land get named after something that doesn't even actually exist? This is because the area is named after a tribe who lived in the land, with this tribe being named by the Europeans the Patagons, who are believed to have actually been another group of people who, while on average were taller than Europeans, were by no means actual fee-fi-fo-fum giants. Nevertheless, the name has stuck around, and from finding out that Argentina means the land of silver and a part of it is dubbed the land of giants, I'm starting to suspect it'll be quicker to get there via beanstalk than airplane. Okay, yes, I know it's gold in the fairy tale, not silver, but come on, it's pretty close. Argentina was suggested by Ekmal Sukarno, and thanks to their suggestion, they will now be honoured as Name Explain's patron saint of Argentina. Do you have a good idea for somewhere that's name could be covered in a Name Explain video? If so, then please consider donating on Patreon. Just $1 a month helps keep the channel running and earns you a weekly chance to suggest somewhere to be turned into a video, and you too could be a Name Explain Patreon saint. Thank you to all my patrons who support NameExplain on a monthly basis. NameExplain really does depend on small monthly donations from fans like you to help keep the channel running. Just a small amount of $2 a month helps in a huge way, grants you patron exclusive NameExplain extras, and gets your name here with all these awesome people. Thank you. Hello all, and thank you so much for reaching the end of the video. Stick around and check out another video and subscribe to stay up to date on all things NameExplain. You can follow myself on Twitter at NameExplainYT. Follow me there and tweet the name Diego at me so I know you came from this message. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and once again thank you all so much.